Welcome back, Red Spotters, another show in the Red Spotlight Entertainment Podcast. I'm your host today, Alexis J. Soto, joined by my very good friend, Mr. David Francisco, in another installment of our WandaVision weekly recap series, currently streaming on Disney+. This is the show, the segment series, in which we get into everything WandaVision as the show is being streamed on Disney+ on a week-to-week basis. For further, I guess, information on this, we did a first WandaVision segment series installment last week, which covered the first 2 episodes of WandaVision. So if you want an introductory podcast for what our initial feelings are of the show, not just those 2 episodes, but our high hopes and our excitement over it, I very much recommend you go back and listen to those. And today we're here to, of course, discuss episode 3. And boy, do we have quite a bit of stuff to talk about here. David, first and foremost, how are you doing this week? And how are you after watching that wonderful episode 3, which I guess the best summary is it starts off as a traditional sitcom and then it ends into a complete horror. I don't know. Horror, yeah. Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. How do you feel?
No, good. No, this episode was great. Like, I remember like some people got to have the episodes earlier before, and they always said episode 3 was like big, huge twist and all that, or just big, really. And so I was just like, all right, I guess I have to wait. And I know last week I said that I wish there was just a bit more to kind of just give you give you a bit more answers of the mystery. I kind of got that in this one for sure.
Yeah, if people like you felt as if the first 2 episodes were missing more material, I guess, to keep you interested or to keep you invested, in particularly with that mystery angle that is a big component of this show, you definitely got that and more with episode 3. Mm-hmm. And that's what we're going to be discussing here, right? On Red Spotlight number 292. All right, so in WandaVision episode 3, or as they say previously on WandaVision, I love all of these just, I'm not sure if subtle is the right way of saying it, but it's just a wonderful, I love how every aspect of this show, for multiple reasons, is just littered with these homages and references to classic television. I recognize, of course, that this being a comic book series, there are going to be references to the comic books. And, for full disclosure, unlike I think a lot of people who review this show, as well as other Marvel shows, I think, and we don't really talk about this as much, but I feel if those who are listening probably may be fans of WandaVision, the comic series. Full disclosure, I've never picked up a comic book in my life, first and foremost, so I would not be considered an avid reader of the WandaVision comic, nor do I know much about, aside from stuff that I hear from others in our circle who, are putting all these Easter eggs and references together. I don't think, David, do you have any history with these 2 characters in their comic book counterparts?
No, I don't think I've read a Marvel comic before. Okay. I've only read DC and the Last Airbender comics.
Mm-hmm. We're really putting ourselves to shame here with our Marvel cred. Mm-hmm. But I mean, we're huge fans of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and we do many podcasts on Marvel Cinematic Universe. We have audio commentaries on all the films. Some of the films have multiple versions of audio commentaries. And of course, we had a Beyond the Shield series recapping the last season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So, I mean, I believe we've had reviews on this show on Daredevil, Luke Cage, Jessica Jones, Iron Fist, even the fucking Inhumans, which I was a piece of shit, honestly. So, like, even the Marvel Entertainment stuff with Fox, whether it be Logan or Deadpool, we cover it all here. We talk about it all. Mm-hmm. And so, needless to say, both of us, from our history, are big fans of movies as well as Marvel movies. They're fun. They're great to talk about. So yeah, in episode 3, let me give you a brief synopsis. This is literally the next day following episode 2, in which Wanda is revealed to be pregnant. And the episode is entirely composed of Wanda's accelerated pregnancy. Basically 9 months of pregnancy happen in a day, and antics ensue. And a lot of other stuff. I mean, that's basically what happens in this episode. I mean, there's not much, I think, of a plot description. There's a lot of really wonderful moments that we can get into, whether it be wonderful sitcom lines or also interesting, weird moments that could suggest, a bigger thing going on. But that's basically what happens in this episode. But I do want to start off with this particular part in case it also is misunderstood here. I really love this episode, and I also really love the first 2 episodes. And as of this moment, I love this show, which I have to say, and it should be made entirely clear, I wasn't expecting myself to say, like 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. Because as of late, I have not been as excited for many of the Marvel projects coming out of Marvel Studios. But I'm having a blast. I am absolutely loving watching this show. I'm loving this show. It is giving me so many different things that I really wished I could have felt in 2020. But it's kind of really sustaining me and my sanity, even though it's ironic because this show is probably, a complete act of insanity. For lack of a better word, honestly. So clearly I'm having a great time. I don't know if you have, after watching the episodes like we did with 1 and 2 and then also 3, I don't know if you've gone out of your way to go to the interwebs and look at a whole bunch of videos like Screen Crush, or Heavy Spoilers, just to name a few, that, their entire channels are, they're based on examining every little thing. And some of the information in those videos were quite helpful. But with this episode, I'm beginning to stop myself from exploring too much of those videos, if only because I feel like it may be giving too much away of what may end up happening. So, for example, everyone was talking about, the twins. Spoilers, by the way. I should have said that off top, but it should have been pretty obvious as well. We always do spoilers on these podcasts. But the twins, Billy and Tommy, and their storied history in the comics. And so people are putting the pieces together for what may come. And I don't know, like a real big part of why I'm enjoying this is just the surprises. So me not being familiar with the history of the comic books was a joy. And I think it was also in part because of how beautifully it was directed and how beautifully it was executed with the actors, doing the performances. But just to see the birth of the twins and then, of course, the moments that would come thereafter, it was a nice surprise, to me. And it probably wasn't that much of a surprise, I would say, to perhaps fans of the comic book series. And so, I don't know. I'm kind of a little bit trying to disregard as much as possible because I want to be surprised and I also want to be enjoy this show. So, I mean, in our episode, to be fair, later on in the episode, we're going to be trying to, push forward our own theories, some of the things that we're seeing here, and maybe pick apart some stuff that are like telltale signs. I'm sure that's part of the fun. But I think that's just a roundabout way of saying that the mystery stuff is great. It's really great. But even just the sitcom stuff, I'm enjoying equally, if not more so, and is really definitely driving the excitement and the energy, at least for me, considering not only but just considering how great it's done. The actors are committing it entirely, but also these episodes 1, 2, and 3 are immensely rewatchable. Immensely and enjoyably so. Mm-hmm. I just finished watching episode 3 for the third time, and I'm finding stuff that I didn't catch the first 2 times, and I'm finding things, lines of dialogue that are, you know, hitting harder in terms of laughter the second or third time. So I don't know. I'm seeing people out there on the interwebs that are not necessarily enthusiastic about this part of the show. Because that genre of television or storytelling just does not appeal to them in the slightest. And if that's the case, well, I'm sorry. I really am. But it definitely appeals to me. And you can't say that they're not funny. I mean, there are definitely lines in these episodes that are like of the time and of the era and are not meant to be all that humorous. But on the other hand, there are great moments that are just charming and you buy into it. I'm thinking of moments like, you know, Wanda trying to hide the fact that she's pregnant from Geraldine, and then, you know, she's accidentally changing the coat that she has on. I'm thinking of moments when, you know, they cut away to, as the power goes out, Dot, you know, is asking her husband, does this earring make me look fat? The power goes out and he says, oh, thank God. I mean, these are... Even something as cheesy as Vision saying, holding a papaya, I can't wait to be a papaya. And then just like, you know, in the performance, you can almost catch Paul Bettany cracking himself up when as he's about to drop this lame ass joke, which also, you know, makes it funnier. So I'm sorry. I don't know why I'm apologizing, but I just say like, I love all the things about this show, but maybe perhaps so what I'm enjoying the most at the moment is the stuff we don't usually get from Marvel, which is the sitcom element. And I think that's the stuff that's working best right now. Not to take away from the mystery, but, you know, that's where I am. And if it wasn't already made clear in this long-ass preamble, I loved this episode. So, David, I want to go to you. Take what you will about anything that I said and respond to it if you want, but then also talk about your overall feelings with episode 3, which, I mean, you might have already given away, but just to give us an overall impression of what you felt with this episode.
No, yeah. I mean, like I said last week, a lot of people, like, they want to see a lot of interactions within these characters, and that's exactly what you're getting with this show, at least only with Wanda and Vision. But that's kind of like the best part of this show, is that you're finally seeing them in a relationship again, even though she's the one controlling it. It's all kind of fake. I like to believe it's real because, you know, there are moments where it's like, okay, this is something Vision would do, which is the moments of him breaking the like fakeness of everything. He's like bringing reality in, basically. And so when you brought up if I like watch videos of people who like analyze every single second of of the episode, I don't look for videos. I've seen a few, and some people just happen to know a lot about the comic. So
there's a lot of information out there, like a lot of stuff there.
yeah, it's insane. I remember I actually did that like in the beginning of the MCU, just like I wanted to know every single thing. And by the time I got to Avengers, like I think I got like a great idea of like who every single one of these characters are. But yeah, I'm not really out there looking for more information, but I think I know everything about Wanda and Vision and the relationship. But yeah, the mystery. I honestly, your way is the best way to probably watch this show. It's just to kind of like know as little as possible and just be surprised. Like I knew about the twins coming way before the show even came out. Like I knew something was gonna like this is gonna be exactly like the comic almost. And so, but it was still really nice to see the twins coming out, and it was a really sweet moment. Again, like I'm basically kind of getting to the end, but well, not them. I won't get into it that much. But the end of this episode got what I really wanted what from the show, which is like really get into the mind of Wanda and like just what has she been through, like when we first saw her, because it was just, you know, she loses her brother, she loses her home, she loses Vision, and like we just don't. She becomes a prisoner, and we just don't see how that affected her in any way. And so we're finally getting something of that in this show, and I really hope that they keep bringing stuff up like that throughout the show. But yeah, again, I'm still loving it. The comedy is great. Same thing as last week. What's his name? Vision. He's great. Just like, I don't know, he's just somehow getting better in every episode. Wanda, she is funny, but again, those moments of her breaking reality, and we finally get a moment of her like almost being human, I guess, and dealing with stuff. She's great, and that turn when when the reality did break and she was just like a villain almost, which that's one big theory people are saying, is that she might become a big villain in the MCU. I don't know. That theory is like super weird for me, because on one hand I understand why she would become a villain, but on the other, I don't want her to. Like, I think it'll be great for her to just kind of like overcome everything that she's been through and be one of the best heroes, I guess.
Yeah, that really reminds me of a lot of the people that really wanted Rey, you know, during the era of The Force Awakens, to end up becoming, you know, a dark side user and everything. And like, I never understood that. And the same way I don't understand, you know, this prevailing, you know, theory that, you know, Wanda would end up being a big bad of the MCU. Because it only takes a couple of seconds of thinking, at least for me, to recognize how uninteresting and how unappealing that sounds in so many ways. Because we've spent so much time, not just with the movies, but now with this show, with this character, and you're telling me that the ending, what you want as an ending, is for her to be a villain who would inevitably end up being destroyed or defeated, and that's the end of the story. I don't know. It just seems like a big waste of time spending so much work building up this character only for her to end up being, I don't know, beaten up by Doctor Strange.
Yeah. And I mean,
that doesn't sound appealing. It doesn't sound interesting. And as a fan of this character, that's not what I want as an ending for her. That sucks. I'm sorry. That just makes me kind of upset. And also, why am I putting this much time watching this? I mean, that isn't to say, of course, it couldn't be handled well, but that's beside the point. The direction, if that was where they were to go, would be infuriating and nonsensical enough, I think, from enough as, you know, to the point where I would be kind of over it if that's what they were going to do. Which is also part of why I don't like to listen to a lot of these series, because a lot of them really don't appeal to me.
No, and even if like she were to become a villain, I don't think they would make her bad enough to like they have to kill her. Like, I wouldn't mind if she was somehow redeemable, but you're right. That would still seem like a waste of time to watch her become that. Just to have her ending be to just go to prison or something, and that's it. So, yeah, it's a weird theory.
It is, and not alone in company in terms of other weird theories that I'm sure we'll be bringing up in here. But I think the point should be made at the top as to what you said, which was, you know, this episode really continues what's great about the first two, and that is definitely the dynamic between Vision and Wanda, you know, not just the performances of Elizabeth Olsen and Paul Bettany, but just the sweet and tender, heartfelt moments that they're experiencing each other, which is almost encompassing like what 90% of this episode is just them, and wonderful moments, you know, of Vision, you know, practicing how to change a diaper. You know, Vision and Wanda lovingly, you know, having a hilarious exchange and a back and forth about like whether or not to name the baby Billy or Tommy. And then of course, you know, the one that takes the cake, which is, you know, the birth of their children. You know, it's the and it's not just that they're present, it's that they're effective. It's that they're landing. When I see those moments, especially the birth of the kids, it's literally doing what it's supposed to do. It's tugging at my heartstrings. It's getting me in the sweet spot. It's making me really invested and care about them, not only as characters, but as a couple. And it also is making me increasingly anxious about where this is all going. Because as we've seen, as you know, with the nature of this episode, it ends up in a very ominous tone.
Oh yeah, and then there's just like a bunch of little other things of adding to the mystery. So what was the first thing? It was when the doctor left the house and Vision saying hi to the neighbor, and for some reason he's like cutting through the cement of the wall, and you're just kind of like, what? Like, it was weird. It's almost like he was going through some glitch himself or something. I don't know.
I think you really just opened a Pandora's box of two big questions I have. Actually, the big question I have, you know, repeatedly is because the prevailing theory, and I'm sure this is what we're seeing here, is that Wanda, grief-stricken, has created her alternate reality. And in terms of how the characters behave in this episode, you might have to wonder to yourself if perhaps Wanda, because of the pregnancy she's going through, is, and we see this in the show itself, where she's losing control of her powers because of, you know, being pregnant or about to give birth and everything. But, and others have said this as well, it's almost as if this was a simulation, in that there are glitches that are happening in the simulation because Wanda is otherwise indisposed. Like that moment that you just mentioned, which was creepy, with Herb literally cutting down, what, a fence? But not like a, you know, cardboard or like wooden fence. This is like a concrete one. And then continuing to do so after Vision questions him. So the big question, or two big questions, is how much is Wanda aware of what's going on? Which is a question I'm sure that, you know, that carries over from the previous episodes, you know, because in the last episodes she rewound the tape, as it were, when things weren't going according to her fantasy. And then the other question then becomes is, how aware or how much do the other characters, the other neighbors, know? And that extends to, in particular, Geraldine, but then also Agnes and Herb, and then also Vision himself, and even Dr. Nielsen that we see in here. Those, I think, are the overarching questions. And I don't think it's all one answer, because there is good reason to suspect that there are multiple, how shall I say it, multiple groups of people involved in here. Whether it be, obviously there's Wanda, but we know, as it's revealed in this episode, Geraldine had a sword symbol that she was wearing, which, you know, leads a lot of fans to suspect that she is, in fact, an agent of S.W.O.R.D., which, if we recall back to our last installment, we had suspected, as well as many out there on the interwebs had suspected, that the helicopter that Wanda found at random was perhaps a team of S.W.O.R.D. breaking in to this dimension. And I think that part does connect a little bit here, because if you remember that in episode 2, immediately following that moment where Wanda finds the helicopter, she ends up going to a luncheon where she happens for the very first time to meet Geraldine. Mm-hmm. And so then here we are, right? Her being revealed to be an agent of S.W.O.R.D. David, I said a lot of stuff right there. I don't know where I was going with that, but just to get that stuff out there. Part of what's really rewarding about this as a week-to-week show is the mystery. I know for others it can be kind of a pain, the fact that you can't watch all of this at once, but I, for one, am definitely appreciating the ability to go back and rewatch the episodes, because I don't know if I would be watching them again if I watched all 9 in one sitting, you know? Anyway, I said a lot there. What do you think?
No, I mean, it is fun to, like, just having this huge mystery every week to week. I mean, all we can hope for is that the payoff is, like, really, really good, and that's it.
It's really important, man. That's the thing, too, and I'm nervous about that. If the payoff isn't great, I don't want that to sink the greatness of these episodes, which can happen and has happened in other moments in media. David and I will be doing a particular season of television in the near future that I think is a primary example of that. When you're teasing something all season long and then the thing that's revealed is awful and then it brings everything down. I really hope that's not what it is. I mean, I really hope that's not it's not what happens. The payoff anyway.
But honestly, like, that's actually the funny thing about this episode is that we keep using glitch as, like, what's happening to these people. And if you remember, there was a moment where I said Vision was, like, breaking into reality, and he what was it? It's like he starts noticing, like, weird things, like, oh yeah, the dinner, and then this thing. It's like, so I don't think something's right here, and all of a sudden it literally glitches and it goes back and he says something else completely. I'm curious, did you think something was wrong with your
I already knew what you were going to ask me, and since we're not on video, I was already nodding, as you know, in the affirmative to David. That's why he's laughing, because the whole world had this exact same thought. I think I was, with all the reviews that I was watching of people, they were just asking each other the same questions. Did you think your TV just had a fuck up? Did Disney Plus just, like, because that's how it looked like. It didn't look like a natural cut to something. It just like a snap of the fingers just happened like that. And it was what made it feel that way is what made it feel so distracting was how unnatural it was. Yeah, because cuts are usually a lot more subtle, if not professional. And this came off as like somebody was half-assing an edit and just like, oh fuck it, we're just gonna cut to this. And but it's hilarious how it worked on many levels. But initially I read that moment as, and I feel this is what happened because I don't know who else would, but this is basically another way of Wanda just how in the last episode she said no and then rewound the tape. She was like, let's try this again, and then we went to another one. That's what I think happened in that moment, which again also just further makes you question, okay, how cognizant is Wanda? Is she fully aware of what's going on? Or is she only like aware when things are going against the fantasy?
I think I want to say anything that goes against her fantasy, that's when she'll take control. I want to say that the rest of the people, at least for the neighbors, for them, I feel like they have their own agenda in this whole thing. Because I don't know, I just think it's weird that there's not really much an effort for her trying to like keep everything together. You know what I mean? Like I feel like she would want it. I think if she really like wanted full control of this reality, she'll make more an effort of being part of the community. You know what I mean? But it seemed, and then I know last week I said, what's that one? Catherine Hahn's character?
Agnes.
Agnes, yes. Last week I said Agnes. I said that she does seem like to be that witch character that's like controlling Wanda or anything or something like that. This episode kind of made me think something different, or like I thought she was gonna be like the big bad, basically. This one made me think something different, because then when you get to that one scene of her talking to the neighbor, and then like they're talking about Geraldine and talking to Vision, kind of just like putting these seeds of like danger into him or something, I guess. And when that one guy starts like is almost about to tell Vision like the truth, I guess it almost seemed like it, she stops him, but not in a like, oh, you better not say anything type of thing. It was more of like, let's not do this. Like she seemed scared, and so that doesn't seem like the right reaction for someone who's going to be a big bad at the end.
A lot of signals happened in that moment that we don't obviously know the answers to, but there are definitely some clues going on. Since we're going to go ahead and go there, I never thought Agnes as being the big bad. She just didn't give me that kind of vibe. And I agree with you that I think is only further confirmed with this moment that we see right now with her and Herb and then Vision, because Vision approaches them still, even, you know, against Wanda's best attempts. There's still some suspicion creeping in the back of his mind, and so he realizes that Agnes and Herb are, you know, very sneakily and suspiciously whispering to each other. And it's kind of revealing about what happens there, because yes, you're right. Agnes is petrified in some moments, but as Herb is about to say something that could kind of tear everything down. But then in other moments, she's kind of, I don't know if this is her just being inquisitive or if she's intentionally trying to cast some doubt within Vision in terms of Geraldine, because, okay, from what I hear, or from what I was reading in the subtitles as Vision was walking up to them, first of all, she was asking about Wanda's tummy or her stomach, which is interesting because Wanda never walks outside in this episode. So how would Herb know that she was pregnant unless was he spying on them? Like closely? Like, did he have like binoculars from his house and like looking into it or something? Because that's an interesting little bit of a detail for me. I don't know if it's going to go anywhere, but like she never really walks outside unless, of course, and I think this is what they were referring to. And he seems to have been outside the entire time. Creepily breaking down fences, it seems. But as you know, Vision runs away to go get the doctor, and Geraldine knocks on the door. She does open the door there. I mean, she covers herself up, I think mostly good, but maybe not too good. So maybe that's when Herb realized that something was wrong with her stomach. And then when Geraldine, right? So again, they're talking about that moment where she just walks in. And Agnes is the primary one, as well as with Herb. They're creating a lot of suspicion around her, which is seemingly out of nowhere because that's not at all how she was, treated like in the last episode. But, all of a sudden Agnes brings up that, she has no family. She has no home. Like she just came out of nowhere. And so there are a couple of different things that I think are going on here. And that is, I think since we know at this point that Geraldine is an agent of S.W.O.R.D., that would make sense then as to why people around her in this neighborhood do not know who the hell she is, because where the fuck did she come from? So that would make her not a member of this neighborhood. Number two, people like Herb and Dot and Joe and others are, I think, part of this neighborhood. Agnes, however, is somebody else altogether. That's why I think the theory that there are multiple parties here, I think is spot on. It's not just Wanda. It's not just S.W.O.R.D. It may not even be just Agnes. There are multiple parties involved here. Which, real quick, not to divulge too far from this moment, but it does give me a little pause for concern, because as we saw also with the commercial, in this episode, another reference to Hydra. Are they really gonna do Hydra again?
I mean, that's their thing, though, too. It's like cut off one head, two more take its place.
Right.
So
other people have said that perhaps it's not Hydra, but another agency called AIM that was first introduced in Iron Man 3, that apparently also has some long-standing ties in the WandaVision comics themselves. Obviously, I think an evil organization or antagonistic organization of some sort could very well be involved. I would rather it be anybody else but Hydra. Only because I think that's been done and tired, but we keep that name ends up, it keeps coming back up and up and up, and I so don't want that to happen. Anyway, going back to, which is also hilarious enough because that was that commercial, Hydra soak. Curiously, a lot of people were acknowledging the existence of S.H.I.E.L.D. because I think they were seeing that in season 4 during the framework arc. Coulson was talking about how he suspected that Hydra uses soap to brainwash people and to keep them compliant. So I don't know if it was a direct reference to that. I would bet that it wasn't, but a lot of people are bringing that up as a pretty interesting coincidence there. But then also the commercial itself was pretty much, I don't know if a metaphor or an allegory fits here, but for what this show is, it's about somebody wanting to get away but not go anywhere, which is kind of what, Wanda's fantasy is. So I love how, a lot of these smaller moments that you think are kind of throwaway or filler are all just reinforcing, they're for a story reason. And ultimately they're telegraphing what's going on. So back with Agnes here. She seems very suspicious, obviously, of Geraldine. And I'll save Geraldine a little bit for later. But then, as you said, she's beyond terrified, as Herb is about to say something pretty important to Vision. I don't know if Agnes is like, trying to make sure the neighbors are okay, but I feel like if Herb were to have said something there at that moment, the look on her face of terror, I feel suggests that wouldn't end well for anyone. Especially if this got back to Wanda. So, I mean, it like maybe pretty deadly. The result could be of that, which, you know, is another question. Like, and I don't know if you had this question yourself, David, and some others are, you know, asking themselves this question: is Vision alive, like for reals, or was he just created to be a part of this fantasy? Because not only are the neighbors, you know, treating him as a person that's actually there, but they just had kids. Or so are the kids themselves real? Are they also just, you know, creations that Wanda just conjured up? And then if you remember the last episode, for the children, there have been theories out there, and I'm sure you've seen them yourself, that there, and maybe one of these multiple parties is primarily interested in the children of Wanda Maximoff, whether it be Agnes or whether it be some other entity involved here. So, I don't know. I just threw out a lot of questions out there. What do you think? Notice how the theme here is, I don't know anything. Either.
I mean, it's a mystery show, so oh my gosh, I had like a bunch of answers in my head.
It's a lot to think about.
Remind me, like, what was the last thing you were mentioning?
About the babies. That some party might be interested in the babies. And are they real? Is Vision real? Those are kind of
that's the one. That was the one. Vision. I was gonna say, I think Vision is alive because in the trailers, you saw the Mind Stone sort of reforming, and so that's basically, to me, that's Vision's soul, his consciousness. The only problem, though, is that if they break to reality, his body might not be real. And so, and I know some people pointed this out in the first episode in the beginning, where like she was moving the plates and it hits Vision's head, and she says, "My husband and his indestructible head." Like, if you remember Infinity War, fucking Thanos just like presses it and destroys. So it's like the body isn't really real. That's just her imagination, like from what she remembers, and she added a few things, especially because I don't think Vision has super speed as a power. At least, like, that's not something that we saw in the movies.
It wasn't in the movies. I think from what I've heard others say, it is something he has the ability to have in the. It's something he can do in the comics, but it's not something we saw in the movies. Who did have super speed was Pietro, her brother, that we saw in Age of Ultron. That was just about it. But this episode 3 in particular, went overtime to tell us that he had overspeed, that he had super speed. I think he mentioned it once, and he also used it to his effect. Also in episode 1, how quickly he was able to finish the files he was working on at work.
Right.
So that is interesting.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Okay, never mind about that. But I mean, either way, I do think that if they were to leave this fake reality, he wouldn't be alive per se because he has no body. But I think that is his consciousness in this world because of the if I'm right, the Mind Stone is back.
There was also, I believe I heard this being mentioned on one of the reviews I listened to. There was news in the last week or so of an abandoned post-end credits scene for Avengers Endgame, or at least conceptually, not that it made it all the way to filming, but that would have been a tease for this show, and that would have been Wanda returning to Wakanda and picking up Vision's body.
Yeah, I heard about that actually. Okay. So, mm,
Maybe you are right.
so
Maybe that's what's happening here. That she found a way to bring back the Mind Stone because her powers come from the Mind Stone. If we need to be reminded about that, and the only way that Vision can be alive is in this reality she's created.
mm-hmm. No, yeah. And then I don't know about the body. Maybe she used his body in the real world to like get a bit of like the essence of the Mind Stone. I don't know. But I mean, really, who knows?
Or maybe
it's a mystery, guys.
Could it be that instead of her like recreating the Mind Stone, what if she's the one that is sustaining Vision's life force? What if she imbued her powers into Vision's body and then brought him back, and like a battery, basically her powers could be like a battery, but the only way that she can sustain him being him would be by creating this dimension.
Maybe.
Yeah, this is just a theory I'm having on the spot here because I hadn't.
Yeah. I think the big thing we need to figure out is how did this reality even come about? Yes, thank you. Because it really like the only thing that can make sense of this reality is the reality stone, but the only thing that at least we know could work that's forming again is the Mind Stone, and so it doesn't really make sense.
Well, it's like, okay, let's take a couple of cracks at it. I mean, I guess to me, the one that's scratching at my head right now is in the process of resurrecting Vision and trying to sustain him. This was a complete accident, and that this dimension or this reality was a byproduct of her trying to do that, and it was so explosive, shall we say, and so large in scope that she's lost not complete control, but she's lost a good amount of control because, and this is a good way of turning it back to how aware is everyone else around her, right? Because the other dangling thread here is Geraldine, and we'll get to her about how aware she was or not. But with Wanda, like we mentioned earlier, there are most of it when she's in the sitcom mode, she's completely buying into that reality. When somebody threatens that, she snaps back into it and literally banishes these people away or does some horrible shit that we don't see. And then also when Geraldine is seemingly thrown out of that dimension, as we see in the last moments of the episode, people have made mention of how she looks as if she's waking up from a dream.
Yeah.
And so, like, could it be that for many of these people, it's like sleepwalking, or like it's like because a lot of the moments that happen, like sitcoms, are dream-like. So it could just be that everyone's, for the most part, asleep in a way, as Geraldine was. But then if we're going to go ahead and talk about Geraldine, I myself was wondering, and I'm curious to hear what you thought, how aware she was, because obviously she was revealed to be an agent of sort. And if she was there, it was to find out what was going on. And, from what we heard last week with Randall Park's voice creeping in about Wanda, who's doing this to you, Wanda? They're very clearly aware of that Wanda's in here and that there's some creepy shit going on. And so they send in one of their agents to come in here and try to snap her out of it. That's what I assume the mission was. Geraldine comes in a moment that is straight out of a sitcom. My place is flooded. I need a bucket to clean it up, and it appears all innocent. And then she lingers, and then she invites herself to go into the baby's room, as if she were looking for something. And so I wonder, I've seen this 3 times. The first time I saw it, it all just seemed to play into the tropes of what that kind of character would do in a sitcom. The second time I saw it, it seemed a lot more intentional. Her lingering, her going specifically to that room to see what was in there. Because she said that she needed to get some office supplies or something.
Mm-hmm.
And then the third time I watch it, it felt more like, no, maybe she is, for the most part, the Geraldine of this reality, but the Geraldine, the sword agent, is subconsciously trying to crack through that sway by doing actions like going into the baby's room to find office supplies or for whatever reason, lingering around, and most importantly, and what I think maybe this is what's indicative of the moment, when Wanda mentions Pietro. And there is this lingering shot on the camera on Geraldine. And we see her face. And again, I read it several different ways. The second time I thought, because when she says he was killed by Ultron, wasn't he? I don't know if you noticed this, but she kind of, that's like the real Geraldine breaking through, because she was talking in a different way in that moment than she was in the other moment.
You know when I noticed that, like the way she talked, you know when I noticed it first, it was when she hears the stork behind her. You know, it's like you hear that, I don't know, like I don't know what the fuck the sound is.
It was a weird noise, yeah.
Yeah, the bird noise, and she didn't play it as like, whoa, what was that? It sounded like a cackling or something like that. Like she wasn't hamming it up. It was just like, what was that? Like did you, like she was literally frightened almost in that moment.
Yeah.
And so it was like, I noticed that on my second viewing, and I was kind of like, that's weird. Like, is that like,
it felt like somebody, it felt like somebody breaking character in a play.
Yeah, it was like she's an agent. I mean, as we're saying, so she's an agent. So like her, what is it? That, you know, like soldiers, like they get into like combat mode or something like that. Like that's her, I think, in that moment. And then, like you said, Wanda mentioning Pietro, then that's her going like, oh shoot, yeah, Pietro died in Sokovia, killed by Ultron, and then like she asked her that.
Do you think? Okay, so a lot of the questions I have about these moments with Geraldine, I think stem from what do you think happened here? Do you think the situation is that she is under Wanda's sway and that parts of her are accidentally breaking through, or is she aware of everything and she's just acting? And she's just playing everybody?
I think she was under Wanda's control in the beginning. Again, there were little moments coming out because it was like WandaVision in the first episode where they're like trying to figure out parts of their past, and it's just like it's kind of breaking through. But then I think her hearing Pietro's name, that's when we get like almost like a completely different side. It didn't feel like she was a part of that reality. It really felt like she was playing a part, like actually tricking Wanda now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know, man. What's good about this is like I'm convinced of both things. I'm convinced that she is, as what you were saying, like parts of her are cracking through, but then also she could very well have like been doing an act here, because then she also acts a little bit suspiciously, right? It's like after she says, because she thinks long about it, and she says he was killed by Ultron, wasn't he? Do you think that was an accident? Do you think that was a slip up on her part? Like because like she acts afterward she tries and acts like she didn't say what she said, and she slips back into 70s mode of, you know, swag and charm and everything. And then Wanda asks her, "What did you say? No, seriously, what did you say?" And she struggles and she acts like she was caught.
Wait, sorry, it just, that part just reminded me of, why did you say that name? Sorry, I've been wanting to say that this entire episode. Okay.
Are you serious? Oh my god. Okay. All right.
But I don't know if it was a slip up. I mean, I guess you can say it was a slip up, but more of just.
Or was she trying to get Wanda, or was she trying to knock her out of it? Was she trying to get Wanda back into reality by asking that question? Because again, afterward, she tries like she didn't say it, and then she gets caught.
Mm-hmm. It could have been both. Like, I think she was trying to get her Wanda back into reality, but she just went too big. You know, she went straight into, oh, he got killed by this guy. It's like, instead of going like, yeah, Pietro, tell me more about him or something like that, you know, or like kind of like taking baby steps into getting her back, you know. And so it could be both. It was a slip up in her part of going, you know, straight into like emotions of her, but it could also be her trying to get her back.
And her being a sword agent, she would be aware of what happened in Sokovia. And another way of reading it in that moment would be when, you know, Wanda mentions Pietro's name. And again, as I mentioned, the camera lingers on her face, and it's almost as if she's having like a snap in reality, like this feeling of, wait a minute, I know this name. Like the episode is so good at making you think this could be one way or the other. And I'm not sure, and I guess we won't be sure until maybe this next episode or when we get more with Geraldine. But yeah, it's really, really interesting. And then the same way, go ahead.
So another reason why I think she was in Wanda's control in the beginning is because so we are guessing that she was in that little helicopter toy that Wanda found. Mm-hmm. It could have crash landed, or in a way crash landed, and so, you know, she could have been knocked out. Obviously, if it didn't fall normally, she would be knocked out, and so maybe that's how she got into. That's why I think she was in Wanda's control, because like she was literally knocked out, asleep, and just quickly went into what was it, 60s genre sitcom.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, and then, like we've been saying, hearing Pietro, just like, bam, she's back.
And then, of course, there is that pesky beekeeper from last episode that did seem to be part of S.W.O.R.D. as well, which I think, you know, suggests that they're trying to break in from multiple different entry points into the dimension, if that is the case.
But why a beekeeper? That's the weird thing.
Yeah, it very much is. You have other moments like Dr. Nielsen, you know, and this is where like the big, you know, ominous moments happen where, you know, he says, oh, the car broke down. It looks like we're not going to be able to get away after all. Small towns can be so hard to escape. And the delivery was pretty chilling. And then it also just makes you wonder, like, man, how aware are these people? Are they all acting around Wanda and Vision like everything's okay? Or are they literally under Wanda's sway? I think both of these, I don't know. I think both can be true. Or maybe they're only under the sway when like Wanda is around them. It's really unclear at the moment, right? But with Wanda, when she catches wind of Geraldine, holy crap, was she terrifying.
No, yeah.
She was scary.
No, yeah, just that quick turn of, she was happy, then she was like reminiscing, and then all, like I said, she just turned to a straight up villain in that moment. It just, that was insane, honestly. It just, her switch. It was great. And then that moment of when Vision comes back into the house and she's just like, oh, she had to go. It's just like, you really thought she almost murdered her or something, but no. And then I love the switch of the aspect ratio. 4:3, 16:9. And then, again, I just like these little details too of like when Geraldine like flies out of the I guess the dome of it. You're finally seeing Wanda's powers, where like she has like this red mist or aura around her, which we don't see much like in the show. So just straight up using like telekinesis power.
Yeah, I mean, to me that just suggested that Wanda used her powers to kick her ass out.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was hilarious. That's basically what happened to Trump last week at the White House. No, You're gone. You're gone, bitch. Yeah, it was, I don't know. It was hilarious. Just watch. I know it was ominous, but it was just funny just seeing her like literally being thrown away and then just crash landing. I know it hurt, but like, I don't know. It was funny. Seeing that. But any more parts on the mystery element? Because there are other moments I want to get to that are not necessarily connected to that.
I don't think so. I feel like we got everything.
Okay. As you mentioned at the top of the show, it was really nice to have a moment at the very least. And this is I think a part of the episode where actual Wanda breaks through here as she is looking at her twins and then says to Geraldine, I was a twin. I had a brother. His name was Pietro. And I'm not sure she says much afterward, but she starts singing in Sokovian to her twins. And I loved that moment so much because, again, the Avengers, there were a lot of characters in the Avengers. There were main characters, there were side characters, and then there were ones that didn't really much matter. And in the movies that Wanda was in, which would be after Age of Ultron, Civil War, Infinity War in particular, she was sharing screen time with like 50 other people who had, top billing and higher priority with the arcs and with the story happening in those movies. So there wasn't any time for a moment for Wanda to reflect on the fact that she lost her brother. So it was nice because we get to have kind of a sad, quiet moment with her grieving Pietro, because he never really was brought up ever again after Age of Ultron. And you would be forgiven if you forgot he existed in the first place with how, little his name is mentioned. But it was just a sweet moment, kind of sad moment, the sad twist of irony that she was a twin. She's not any longer because, Pietro's gone and everything. Yeah.
No, yeah, I forgot that I mentioned that. Yeah. This is something that I wanted from the show. It's just trying to get into her mind of like how everything has affected her. Like, has she dealt with it? Has she moved on? Or is this show gonna bring us into like this big explosion of her of like finally dealing with everything that she's been through all her life? And so I just hope we keep getting stuff like that in every episode afterwards.
Yeah, I definitely wish that to be the case as well. Just other stuff here that's little nods and winks in other directions. Dr. Nielsen, a lot of people were saying that he was a reference to the Nielsen ratings system. the ratings for television. They were a big thing. There were also some really interesting moments of him kind of being dismissive to the women here. In the beginning of the episode, he talks about how to explain, the trimesters of a pregnancy to women in terms of measuring fruit. And he says it makes it simple for him, giving a look to Vision, and then the camera cuts to Wanda, just like, giving a look on her face like, did he really just say that? And then she looks to Vision, almost as if like their real mind frames are breaking through, because they're from the 21st century. This is supposed to be in a 70s way of thinking. And then later in the episode, he says to Geraldine, "You'd make a great nurse." When in fact, I mean, she gave a whole spiel earlier in the episode about like, getting hired for some job. In particular, she mentions her boss, Mr. Haddix. And what was interesting about that is, the stork sequence. There's a stork that's like trying to eat her pants because she's wearing fish, or there's fish on her pants. Well, there's a fish called a haddock fish, and that's the fish that's on the pants. As she's talking about her boss, Mr. Haddix. So I thought that was interesting.
Whoa. That's weird.
Yeah. Wanda kept trying to hide her pregnancy several times in the episode, obviously, and that is a nice little reference to a long history of women in sitcoms that have real life pregnancies and then try to hide them. That's happened several different times, and so they employed
that happened in the Flash show. Hayden Panettiere, oh my gosh, I can't remember her name, but one of the characters, she was pregnant, and like you can clearly see what they're trying to do. She has like a pillow in front of her, she's sitting down most of the time, but like kind of looking at an angle. Yeah, it happens a lot. I believe the same thing happened on Once Upon a Time every other year when what's her name, Jennifer Goodwin, when she would get pregnant every other year. So yeah, they would try. And it's gonna happen. It's probably gonna happen in this last season of Supergirl. Melissa Benoist is pregnant, so. Oh well, yeah. Yeah, it's not exclusive to sitcoms as we've just said, but it's definitely a long trope that they use here to hide that from you. So I'd be remiss if we left this without also mentioning the opening theme song, which have been the theme songs have been amazing. Dare I say this is the best one yet, because God help me, I've had it stuck in my head, literally playing on repeat ever since I saw this on Friday morning. Like literally, it is dangerous how catchy these songs are. And I actually had the lyrics here because, as some have pointed out, there's a little bit of a interesting meaning as to with the events that happen in this episode, and I wanted to read these for you because since you say that music goes in one ear and goes out the other, I have them here. Here are the lyrics of the song. We've got something cooking and it's looking good. We've got something cooking and who knew we could? And who knew we could? All great expectations lead to complications. But it's groovy and fun. It's me and it's you. Together, 1 + 1 is more than 2. Some sudden surprises come in all shapes and sizes, but it's rainbows and sun. It's you and it's me. Together, 1 + 1 is family. Some of the stuff here where it says like, we've got something cooking and it's looking good. We've got something cooking and who knew we could? Like, yeah, who knew Wanda and Vision could have kids? Yeah. All great expectations lead to complications. Some sudden surprises come in all shapes and sizes. So. Yeah, so the whole thing is just about the pregnancy. So.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
And that's cool.
Yeah. I love these. I love these so much. And what I also do appreciate, and I want to say, I don't know if, oh yeah, I think it was Seska Says, who is a YouTuber, a reaction YouTuber, who also mentioned this in her reaction to these episodes. So it's not just me. And I know while I was listening to the Fantasy Fair last week, and I believe Mr. Francisco, you were on there with Alexis Moreno and with Kyle Lira. You were doing a review of the Soul film as well as The Mandalorian. And I believe some mention was made of the fact that we're doing WandaVision recaps here on a weekly basis. And I know Mr. Lira said in particular about me that I would be using the occasion of these WandaVision recaps to completely bitch about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Well, I don't necessarily know what that means per se. I mean, if acknowledging the show exists and that it's part of the cinematic universe is bitching about it, well, I'm sorry, not sorry about it. But I think what I was about to say with Seska, she on her channel was saying that a lot of these opening intros reminded her of how S.H.I.E.L.D. employed the first couple of episodes, you know, in their final season. Because, I mean, we can't help but, you know, draw the comparisons, right, David? You and I saw those episodes, and we saw the similarities, how and they're not necessarily handling it in the same ways, but they're both basically using part of the storytelling mechanisms to pay an homage to television, and both did it in their own ways. But we just can't help but compare because it's so recent in our minds. You know, those who actually saw it, you know, would know how similar this feels to that. So, but I also do want to clarify, I don't mean to bemoan anyone who doesn't watch it per se. I you know, if it's not your thing, it's not your thing. I get it. I don't mean to come off as mean-spirited about it in any way, but you know, unless it's people of the media. In this case, my ire is definitely directed at them because it's their job to get paid to cover and to acknowledge, you know, that this exists and that it played a part. And it's not just exclusive to this show. I also, by the way, if you're listening to this, I do recommend you also listen to Alexis Moreno and I's recap of The Crown, which is an amazing, amazing television show. And I also did mention at the top of that podcast that I believe will be going up fairly soon, covering season 3, about how convenient it was for the media, the media that covers our industry, with how hyped and The Mandalorian is, right? You'd think it was the number one show. Whereas, you know, we just mentioned Nielsen. Nielsen released their chart of, you know, how certain shows and films performed on streaming in December. And it showed how The Crown was actually more popular than The Mandalorian. You can believe that. But would you know it? No, you wouldn't know it. Because have you heard that anywhere? No, you haven't heard that anywhere. Why? Because the people who are paid to say these things are not saying these things, are they? So, am I going to call out hypocrisy in the media? Always. I always have, always will. But, yeah, I generally would not hope that people would be bothered that I mentioned that a show exists in this universe. I mean, hey, I'm sorry. But you knew what you signed up for if you have me in the podcast. So, there you go. There you go. Any response to any of that, David? Or do you rather just, or anything else you want to say about episode 3 of WandaVision, and any predictions you want to throw out there for episode 4?
Predictions. I heard episode 4 is gonna be even crazier.
Paul Bettany said that it is mind-blowing.
Yeah. I'm just, maybe that means some answers, maybe just more Wanda stuff, who knows. I can't wait.
I assume it's going to be an 80s themed episode, right? Since we're going up in the decades.
I don't think so. Because I want to say what's next, and what we're going to see is their like makeshift costumes of like their actual superhero costumes. I don't know if you remember that part of the trailer?
I think that's the 80s, isn't it?
I don't know. It could be 80s, sure. I want to say it could be 90s. Who knows?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just assuming because we're going up in the decades. At what point do you think they're going to drop the sitcom element of the series?
I want to say possibly second to the last episode, honestly.
If you're right, I would love that. I think probably there are 9 episodes in total. I think my hope would be episode 5 or 6. But again, it doesn't bother me. I think that's part of the DNA and the charm of the show. If you're somebody that's waiting around for the sitcom elements to like not be a thing, I don't know what to tell you. All I can tell you is I'm enjoying it. I'm loving it. I'd rather they don't drop that element, but at some point they are, because we have to get into reality, right? So interesting. Yeah, I wonder what Paul Bettany was referring to about it being like mind-blowing and bonkers.
Yeah.
I guess to me what I'm looking forward to the most is if it is an 80s or 90s themed episode, I can't wait to see what theme song they have now.
Yeah.
Because Also, one thing I want to say, so I don't know if it's been mentioned, but the music and the songs are brought to you by the Frozen team. It's not just the Lopez's that are writing these songs. Christoph Beck, who scored the Frozen films, is also scoring WandaVision, which I have to say, the music has been pretty excellent so far. So, just, to mention that there. Anything else?
Nah, that's it.
All right. Well, David, thank you so much. This has been a fascinating conversation. And I'm sure it'll be even more so in the next week. Thank you all for listening. Reminder, we have weekly WandaVision recaps as long as the show will continue airing for the next couple of weeks. Here on Red Spotlight, every single Sunday and Thursday. The recaps, I imagine, will be dropping not on those days, maybe somewhere in the week. We're going to be releasing a lot of episodes. As you know, we have many different segment series going on, including The Crown and others as well. We just finished doing Guillermo del Toro, which I have to say I'm quite proud of. These episodes were not only invigorating as far as a film discussion is concerned, but also enlightening in terms of how much Peter and I personally connect with Guillermo del Toro as a director and as a person. So I recommend you all listen to that. And of course, Fantasy Fair is going to be doing a short film themed month in February, as well as To the Table will be returning in February with a theme that is called Feel Good February. With that, thank you all for listening. We'll see you all next time. Stay under the spotlight. Bye-bye.
Bye.